Hey everyone, welcome back to Breakthrough Innovation, where we uncover what it really takes to lead change, create value, and build what's next. I'm JL Heather, and normally Preston's here to be a co host. He couldn't make it today. Together, we lead Centered, a firm that helps organizations navigate complexity, spark creativity, and unlock the full potential of their teams through innovation, coaching, and strategy. Today's guest focuses on something leaders often underestimate when facing change. That's momentum built through clarity, not pressure. Dr. Christiana Schroeder is a TEDx speaker, leadership strategist, professor, and best selling author who has spent more than 20 years studying and teaching how people lead, decide, and perform under pressure. With a PhD in health economics and experience advising more than 10,000 professionals and students, Christiana blends research, real world leadership insight, and practical action. She's also the host of the Happy, Healthy Hustle podcast, ranked in the top 1% globally, and the creator of the Petite Practice Framework, a simple, repeatable approach built on small steps that create lasting change. Christiana, I have to admit that the podcast title, Happy Healthy Hustle Podcast, I feel like I had to practice that a few times just to make sure I could get it out. But I'm really excited about this conversation. Thank you for giving us your time and your benefit of your experience. Welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me, audience. I'm really glad that I'm here today and sharing some really cool tips and strategies with you. And of course, if you're ever bored, just practice the happy, healthy hustle, a little tongue twister, and maybe it's going to actually bring a smile to your face, which was kind of the goal of that title, too.
Absolutely. I love it. If you are looking for something right off, you've done some TEDx talks, right? Which I think is amazing. It's on my bucket list. I'd love to do it. And I know your talk focuses on how those small steps create lasting, bigger change. I'm
Mhm.
curious, what was the problem that you were seeing in leaders that made you realize that message was missing?
Yeah, so I'm a leadership strategist. And if you're immediately thinking, oh my gosh, what does that sound? Right? It's kind of if you think of a Venn diagram, so three circles. I work at this intersection in the middle where the three circles overlap, right? There's leadership, there's execution, and now this is an important piece, there's behavioral science. So most leaders actually don't struggle with strategy or even
Right.
making big priorities. What I help them with is translating their big priorities into small, actionable steps that you can take even under pressure, where you then actually see progress that sticks. So by dealing with the day-to-day operations, things always pile up. But if you really break down your big priorities into small steps, you can always add a small step even on a super busy day. So that was the number one mistake, that people think to accomplish a big goal, you have to take a big step, where in reality, the small step consistently taking is really what leads to the big outcome over time.
It kind of reminds me of what they say about exercise, where, it doesn't necessarily matter what you do. What matters is the consistency. And that's kind of what I hear you saying. It does matter what you do in this case. But more than anything, it's about making consistent progress over time and not waiting for the right moment. Because when you wait for the right moment, it just never comes, right? There's always something else.
Right, and actually, let me go on this exercise thing too, because I work as a fitness instructor, and I teach a lot of classes during the week. So I understand that mindset of somebody coming in and asking me, "I want to lose weight. I really want to
Mm.
become a healthier individual. Help me, please." What's really, really important, audience, and I know we're at the beginning of the year and everybody has this on their bucket list, that you need to decide, why is this important to you? Because just saying, "Oh, I want to exercise more," sometimes I say, "Is this actually something you're going to change your life for? Or is it just something that's like a nice to have thing," right? And then secondly, once you really get this clear in your mind, you need to figure out what is the first step you want to take. I could take you all day long through exercises and smoothie recipes and how to create a better sleep routine. But you need to figure out what that first step would be, because then you're actually in charge of it and you're the agent of your own health. That is the most important thing.
Well, and I love that idea of starting with why. I think Simon Sinek talks about that really well. But that one of the things we work with leaders on our side is it's not enough just to know your why.
Mhm.
Right? As a leader, you have to help other people find their why, and it's going to be different.
Mhm.
If you want to truly motivate someone, you can't tell them why you're in this. I mean, you can, but that's not going to be enough. You have to tell them why it's important that they're in this with you, and that's a harder message to craft.
Yeah, I always say, I am not a motivational speaker because I could motivate you all day long to exercise, to lead a better business, to write more emails, to provide more content online, and blah, 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 blah. But at the end of the day, you need to figure out why that is actually important to you, your family, your business, just your individual self. And I always say it's kind of like this inequality, right? At what
Yeah,
point does the benefit of doing it become greater than the cost of not doing it, right?
yeah,
So you kind of need to think like, hold on, if I'm doing this, it's really not that big of a deal. But if I'm not doing that, oh. And so you need to think a little bit. It's like this little balance there, like, not really all that bad to just post
right,
one article per week on LinkedIn or whatever. I think I can handle that, right? Yes,
yep.
that's really what it comes down to.
Well, and then I think maybe the next step I see people missing, and I'm curious on your perspective here, is they start to figure out the why. They figure out what they're going to do, and they have a plan. But the part that maybe they're missing is this definition of success. Like, how will I know I'm succeeding? How will I reward myself? Like when I do cross, I don't want to say the finish line because that feels like you're done. And I don't think that's really the right way to look at it. But when I cross this milestone, how do you help people kind of understand how to measure their own success?
Quite honestly, I don't think there's one definition of success. It comes in so many shades and colors that it would be really hard to say, well, it's going to be this particular metric right there. I
Hmm.
think what you really need to sit down and do first before you do anything else is you need to figure out, we talked about the why, but really figure out what is it really that you want to accomplish, that you want to share with the world. And what really helps when I speak with leaders is you need to kind of like take a jump forward and you need to figure out where do you want to be in 2 years from now?
Right.
Like visualize that. 2 years is not a super long time,
No. Yeah.
but success might mean that you reach this 2-year mark, right? So you really need to like picture, okay, what am I going to do at that moment? Even like things like mundane, like day to day routines. Where am I in 2 years? And success might mean that you come closer to the definition of 2 years from now.
Right.
So I could tell you all day long, oh my gosh, apply here, do this, do that. And that might be what I think my success would be. But at the end of the day, it comes down to you looking back to your life and thinking, I think I had a really good life. And the
Right.
definition of success for me came from doing A, B, and C because we're all different. But you don't
Right.
want to look back and say, gosh, I just wish I would have done this. Or I just hope I could have applied here. That's not success. Success is
Right.
really figuring out like the three things on your bucket list and tackling them today, not waiting for tomorrow. That's success right there.
Yeah. And I think it was, who did I hear from? Probably Daniel Pink, I think. He talked about like the biggest regrets people had at the end of their life were the things they didn't do, not the
Mhm.
things they did. So I love the way that comes together. I am curious, like, how does this come to life in your framework, the Petite Practice Framework? What does that look like? And how
Well,
does it kind of counteract some of that typical do more, push harder mantra that a lot of leaders hear?
yeah, so of course, audience, I invite you to watch my TEDx talk where I'm going to guide you through this in more detail. And of course, you get some more background about who I am. Plus, fun fact, you will actually see my hair down and like draped over my shoulder, not piled on top of my head right now. So that's like your fun fact right there. But I'm going to guide you right now through the framework that I'm revealing in my TEDx talk. So, how does it work on a day-to-day basis? Is I call it the step approach. So STEP for taking a step, like a petite step, a petite practice. First, take your big goals, simplify it. Sometimes we just overthink. And because we overthink, we procrastinate because we don't even know how to get started. So take your big goals, break it down into simple action steps. Then you have to choose the one you get started with. And I do this like really like direct in their face with my clients where I basically ask them, all right, so cool. Now you get all these sticky notes. Which one do you want to get started with? And they're like, well, I have this over here and that over there. And I'm like, I'm just asking, which one are you getting started with? And they're like, well, if you ask me this way, I guess I'm doing that. And I was like, okay, cool. And then I will ask you tomorrow, did you actually take action on this? Because you chose that one for a particular reason. I didn't choose it for you. So you need to figure out how you're actually going to get this done today. And then like, well, I better get through this. So see what I'm doing is it's not my responsibility figuring out. I can develop strategies all day long, but this is
Yeah.
like you. So simplify. Second, you have to tell somebody. And what I just guided you through was that conversation. What's your goal? Okay. And sometimes they're like really quiet. It's like, I really want to give a TEDx talk. And it's like, what did you just say? I didn't hear it. And then what that happens is, I have to share this too. It's like, are you embarrassed to say this? It's kind of a cool thing. Why are you saying this? Do you think people are going to make fun of you if you want to stay on the stage and speak in front of 1,000 people? I don't think so at all. So
Yeah.
simplify, tell others, and that's also important for yourself. Tell yourself because then it becomes real and it brings it in the present moment, right? So you took your first
Mm.
step, you told others, now you need to examine. And we talked about this earlier. The examination is important. Looking forward 1 or 2 years, you don't need to get crazy like, oh, what am I going to do in 5 years? That's a lot, but maybe 1, 2 years. Look back, what worked, what didn't work. If it didn't work, figure out why and maybe get rid of that. We don't need to do everything in our life, right? And now the last step, the P is the most important one. So we simplified, we told others, we examined. E, that's the most important one, the P. You have to praise progress. If you do that examination of looking back and you're like, oh my gosh, it actually worked much better than what I thought. That's brilliant. Praise the progress. Because
Mhm.
only if you praise the progress, you can take that next step and you can make the next sticky note and scratch something off your list, right? That's pretty much it.
I love there's a theme in there that I like a lot, and it came up right away with the tell someone where you said you also have to tell yourself, and then it came up again in the P where it praised the progress. I think so many people underestimate the power of the internal monologue or dialogue, and the I want to do a TED talk, like that whisper of a TED talk. Like people are afraid to speak it out loud because somehow speaking it out loud gives it power that it didn't have before. But I'm curious, like, how often do you see the problem actually coming to life in the internal monologue rather than something external?
I actually totally agree with you. I think the T for tell is the most important. So when I presented my TEDx talk to friends, family, neighbors, acquaintances, people that are waiting in doctors' offices, see where I'm going with this, right? This is not just a TEDx talk. This is like me sharing my message with the whole world.
Yeah.
I noticed, and this is really interesting, audience, on the T part, people kind of started tearing up. They became really
Mm,
emotional. And sometimes I was like, is there something like that I'm like, what's going on? And then when I was done with my talk, I said, I want to hear, what's your takeaway? It was
yeah.
always that they were like, I think. So, for instance, one lady, she was an alcoholic, right? And
Mm,
so she is now 12 years sober.
mm,
She said that by the fact that she told others that she wants to stop drinking that tea, that's what changed her life
mhm.
because it made it to her an actual affirmation. I want to do this. I need to change my life. This is not how I want to lead the rest of my
Right.
life, right? So that is so important because, again, of course, you're letting others know about your goal, but this is really important. This is kind of like a two-sided situation that's happening now. If you're really afraid what others think, it gives you the beautiful, the beautiful filter of if you think people will make fun of you, I don't think they were meant to be in your life anyway.
Yeah.
And if you think there are others that are going to be your cheerleaders, you will need them on the day when it becomes a little tough.
Right.
So by telling others, you get your cheerleaders, you get your accountability partners, but you also get rid of the people that are just there, the Debbie Downers. They're like, you're going to do what? Right? Because
Yeah.
in my research, behavioral sciences, this is really important. People that are physically inactive, that don't read books, that are not standing on stages and speaking, if you look at their friends, they're exactly the same.
Yep.
So you need to associate yourself with people who you want to be, and
Mm.
then you can transform your life.
No, I love that. I mean, the people you surround yourself with pretty much define such a huge portion of your life.
Mhm.
Who you marry, who you hang out with on the weekends, your kids, like all of that. Not that you'll ever disown your wife or significant other or your kids, but I do think you do have to be really careful about who you let be an influence, for lack of a better way to say it. So I know we're getting close on time. I'm curious just to leave people with something really tactical. If someone who's listening right now is feeling really stuck or overwhelmed, what's a small step they could take tomorrow, this weekend, next week? It would actually matter. Like, what would you recommend?
Beautiful. Yeah, we talked about that step framework. What I think is the most important thing is here we are, in January, and you got all these New Year's resolutions. I give you permission right now to just work on one of them.
Mm.
Don't work on 10, don't work on 5, just one. Because guess what? How can we build momentum if you're, like, stuck in the mud and we're just like, "Oh my gosh, I can't even get traction because I'm trying to do all these things," right? Just do one. And
Yeah.
that's the petite practice, the simple step. Because I know living healthy entails oh so many things, but how about if you wanted to, give a talk? How about you just share it with your friends, with your neighbors at the next family gathering? You just get up and say something nice about somebody else, a gratitude speech. That's great. So it doesn't need to be this big thing. I just give you permission. Just choose something small, and then that will be your goal. You can do it.
I love it. One of the things I always tell my kids is you can do anything, but not everything. Uh, I think it's a good lesson. I think most of my best leadership lessons came from being a parent, which seems a little bit weird to say, but it's true. So, Christiana, thank you so much for your time. This has been absolutely fantastic. I think we could have gone another 30, 40 hours. I don't know, long time talking about all of this because I think it is a topic that matters a lot. It's one I'm passionate about. I really appreciate your insight.
Thank you so much. And to the audience, I know you can do it. Don't be so hard on yourself. Talk to yourself as your best friend.
Speaking of the audience, if they do want some support, if they want to connect with you or if they want to connect someone else with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
I would love for you to subscribe to my YouTube channel, Dr. Christiana. And there, of course, all my podcasts as well as my amazing guests are there. And then, of course, connect with me on LinkedIn. That's why we are calling it LinkedIn. Link with me on LinkedIn. And I have a newsletter there as well that I'm sharing once per week and give you some more tips and tricks and insights how to become unstuck and how to move forward in your life.
Love that. Well, thank you again. And for everyone else who made it to the end, as I'm really fond of saying, while you're down there leaving that five-star review, we'd love to hear from you. What are your challenges? Where have you felt stuck? What are you doing this year to move the ball forward to gain some momentum? And then if you know someone who is struggling with momentum, struggling with leadership, forward this episode to them, introduce them to Christiana, and share the wealth. That said, Christiana, thank you again for all the time. For everyone else, thank you as well. And we'll see you all next time on Breakthrough Innovation.